For years, Health Canada has been pushing us into this pharmaceutical model. And it's actually only because Canadian citizens have in the past been so involved in trying to protect their access to natural products that we have what we have now. As far as the consumers go, we are going to see a dramatic reduction in our access to products. I think we're still going to have access to vitamins. Although Health Canada will continue to play this game where, the label amounts are so meaningless that they won't do you any good unless you have a healthcare practitioner telling you, well, wait a second, 1,000 IU a day of vitamin D, you might as well not even take it. You're in desperate need of vitamin D. But if you follow that label instruction, it's gonna be meaningless. Take this amount, right? So not only so for all our multi-ingredient products that are actually used for health conditions, those are going to be taken away from us. And that process is starting right now. Health Canada is imposing really high new fees on the natural health community. So their estimate per year for these new fees on the natural health community is a little over 118 million a year. Prices are going to increase. The number of products is going to decrease. Health Canada is creating this whole regulatory arm to make sure that nobody makes truthful health claims. The only claim they will allow is what's on the label, and they're going to be restricting even what you can say on the label. We know vitamin D works. We know vitamin C works. We actually know a whole bunch of plants and herbs work for specific conditions. And right now, you can just use those traditional references. Well, we're going to lose that. But even the philosophical foundation of our drug regulations are just an affront to, sovereignty over our own bodies. Because the premise of our Food and Drug Act is that they just make every treatment illegal. And then we structure our drug regulations where for any serious condition, you have to go through a process that costs basically $1 billion. If you don't have a patent, you're never going to spend the money or raise the money to be able to go through that approval process. And this is by design. So it means that in Canada, it's functionally illegal to treat any serious health condition with anything but a chemical pharmaceutical drug. The natural health community's changed now that we're regulated. Now we've got I shouldn't say a bunch, but we have a number of large players that are owned by pharmaceutical companies. The reality is there are tens of millions of Canadians that either are alive or are really successfully treating conditions and having quality of life because of natural products. Health Canada is not about health. And I challenge anyone to go into the Food and Drug Act and regulations and find a single word in there that gives them the responsibility to protect our health or even to have good act in the public interest. Health Canada is there to enforce the Food and Drug Act and regulations, and they are designed to restrict our sovereignty and to make it functionally illegal to treat serious conditions with anything but chemical pharmaceutical drugs. So you're not going to be licensed as a self-care product for any condition that is serious enough that you would seek the advice of a healthcare practitioner licensed by a province. So if it's something you would go to a naturopathic doctor for, or a homeopathic doctor, or a nutritionist, or a traditional Chinese practitioner, and the list can go on. Well, that's not the type of condition for which you can get licensed now under a self-care product. So if you can't get a license for the types of things that these healthcare practitioners treat you for, can we realistically expect that those products are going to be on the market for those practitioners to use? And they don't want those practitioners out there. They only want us going to medical doctors. And if you think otherwise, we're just going to have to disagree on that. But one of my biggest fears with this is we're going to lose our practitioners, because if they don't have the means, if they don't have the products that they're currently using to help you, then how are they going to stay in business? In this discussion paper, I went back to a risk analysis done by Professor Ron Law, who's a risk analysis expert. He did this for a client of mine in 2004. Now I've got much more current ones. So you'd ask, well, why would you go back and use one from 2004? And it was government based on Canadian government statistics then. And I chose that one because we weren't regulated until 2004. So prior to 2004, if you went into a health food store, and I mean, the shelves were full, completely unregulated, no government regulation at all. Did you feel afraid in 2004 when you walked in a health food store? No.
Not at all.
Anytime before that? No, it wouldn't even occur to you that there was a problem because there wasn't a problem. So this is an appendix that I put into this discussion paper. And what happens here is Professor Ron Law had basically, using Canadian government statistics, had compared, relative risks. He picked the risk of being killed on a Boeing 747 flight. You were 14 times more likely to be struck by lightning than to be killed by a natural health product. If you are 14 times more likely to be struck by lightning than you are to be killed by a natural health product, well, you certainly are not going to give up your right to access natural health products. That you are 428 times more likely to be killed bicycling than to be killed by a natural health product. And I mean, nobody's afraid of going bicycling. You are 714 times more likely to be killed in a school bus. And you are 1,071 times more likely in Canada to be violently murdered than to be killed by a natural health product. 1,071 times. But the flip side is there's a danger to removing these products from the market. They actually believe that it's dangerous to have them on the market because their institutional assumption is they don't work. Who has the right, Glenn, to tell you how you're going to prevent sickness? Who has the right to tell you how you're going to treat yourself when you're sick? The real problem is a philosophical legal problem where we take the position that you don't have the right to choose how you're going to prevent getting sick, and then also how you're going to treat yourself. Because when you make everything illegal and the legal premise is you can only have access to things the government has approved for you, that's a pretty interesting proposition. I think it would be a good idea, like rather than restricting truthful health information, why don't we make it the law that no, you can sell stuff like, now it's in the area of natural health products, but you actually have to be 100% truthful about every scrap of information you have, and so that it's apparent what you don't have. We're actually going to want to equip you. Here are the talking points. Read the discussion paper so you understand. Take a copy to your MP's office personally and demand a meeting. And phone them. And we're not talking just one meeting. And we want you to write to your MP, and we'll give you a whole list, and the Prime Minister, and the Minister of Health, and the Auditor General, and so on. And not just once. This is real. This is happening. We are going to lose access to natural health products, and I promise you, if you sit still on this one, you will regret it. So you're actually going to have fun if you start participating, but you have to. And it's uncomfortable, and it's hard, but this is going to determine what type of world we have in the very near future.